All right.
Are we recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Okay.
So this is Batman, Arkham Asylum.
There he is.
There's
his like military industrial boots, his really intense gloves.
I like that his suit looks like it's screwed on.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like I think I was telling you earlier in another life that I think the suit's cool. Like they handle the suit really well. It's weird to me that he has the outside underwear because you said this game came out in 2009?
Yeah.
Seems like you don't need Batman with the outside underwear in 2009. Like we've moved past that.
But it's meant to be iconic. This is the first Batman game that was really made to be a Batman game on its own. Like it wasn't based on another property. It was Batman. You're gonna be Batman. You're gonna solve these detective things, and you're gonna fight bad guys. And so like I was saying earlier that it's inspired a lot by the animated series, but it really kind of exists as its own thing.
It's got its own like continuity now, basically.
It does.
Like,
Now, when I first played it back in 2009, before there were any sequels, I was like, this could really just be like part of the same universe as the animated series. But now that it's kind of expanded on its own, like it really is its own self-contained thing.
Yeah. Well, and actually, let me just pause. I do want to just admire this. That's a good Batmobile.
Yeah.
Because one of my problems is that in the comic books, they still a lot of times draw the Batmobile with like the really blatant bat face on the front.
You don't like the bat face?
Again, like in 2016, do we need the bat face on the front of the bat? But this, you can tell that they're like hinting at that, but it's like a weird combination between that, the animated series, like how it's long and like a roadster, but then also the Burton Batman with the back, and it's got the kind of...
So we should explain going in that this is Cody. I'm the only one who's played this game, whereas JJ knows a lot and is really obsessed with Batman. And you've never played this.
Never played it.
Marcus has played a lot of video games and has never played this.
Right.
And even though I've been telling you to for 7 years now.
Well, now is the time to do it.
Now, so here we are. Marcus is going to play for the first time, and we're just going to talk about it because we love Batman, and I love these games.
And I'm fascinated by these games because I've almost bought game consoles just so I could play these games.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the biggest reason I'm not a gamer is because it's so freaking expensive.
Right. I've been able to play every single Arkham game without ever owning a console or the game itself. I've just and I feel like that's kind of like the reality that enough people like buy games that if you're just a casual gamer, you don't ever have to buy them.
Yeah.
Like everyone else will just buy them and
Well, like what I've told you before, like when I think about buying a game console and then buying each one of these games, like even just buying the game, even if someone gave me a console and I was like, I need to buy the new Batman Arkham video game.
Yeah.
Do you know how many comic books I could buy with like $59.99? Like
that's a lot of comics.
That's why in my brain I'm like, as a Batman fan, I feel like it's not like I could be reading Batman comics more.
Actually, but how many trade paperbacks do you get with $60? Like,
well, but screw trade paperbacks.
5.
So I can go on eBay and I can order like a huge, I can order like a huge run of Batman, like or Detective Comics, like Alan Grant stuff from the 90s. I can order like for $60. I could probably get like 30 Batman comic books.
But in this, you get to be Batman.
That's true, but I'm not Batman. That's why I like him, because I don't have to like be stressed out about the things that he's stressed out about.
Do video games stress you out?
Yeah, they do.
That's what I mean. When I first played this, I think that was what I didn't expect. I was looking forward to the game when it came out because I like Batman and it looked cool. Everything that I saw about it looked cool. So when it came out and I played it, I was like, I never realized how much fun it would be to just be Batman and to just be able to run around this place punching bad guys and hiding in the shadows and solving puzzles as Batman. And no other experience gives you that until they release Arkham 8 on the Oculus Rift, and with like nerve sensitive technology that you plug in so that you feel everything. And
so you relive your parents' death once every 45 minutes, as I assume Batman does.
Yeah, because by that point in the distant future,
Paul Dini.
Paul Dini's. We'll talk about that. But in the distant future, or the not too distant future, at the rate things are going, when video games are so immersive that they wipe your brain of everything that you know about your real life, and you just like actually become Batman, and you think you're Batman, and you play for like a 15-minute session that feels like an entire lifetime. Like, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Which is kind of funny because have you been reading Batman and Robin Eternal? I can't remember if you said so.
I'm like two issues in.
Well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but part of it is like this whole process of trying to create people who are like Batman.
Oh.
And one of the things that they have to do is figure out how to like provide people with trauma so they can turn into Batman.
Okay.
So it sounds like that video game you've just described is like, Mother from Batman and Robin Eternal. That's like her goal.
That sounds. Now I'm gonna.
That's why you got to read it. That's what I've been telling you.
Because only 2 issues in, and I'm like, I don't really know what this Mother thing is about.
It gets really good when you get after like issue, I think like 6 or 7.
Okay.
Because it's at its heart and its soul, it's a Dick Grayson's story, which I love.
Yeah.
But so I love the fact that Batman has long ears in this, because that's another thing that I feel like when Jim Lee started drawing, I could be wrong about this, and people will probably call me out, but I feel like Jim Lee started drawing Batman with really short ears in like, when he was doing what is it with Jeff Loeb, Hush, and Batman's just had short ears ever since then.
Right.
And I really like long ears, and I like the yellow circle around the bat sign.
Again, this is we're Bat fans that grew up with the 90s Batman.
Yeah.
And I think the short ears is definitely a reaction to the 90s over the top, like really pointy Spawn, Todd McFarlane type.
Well, it's and it's one of my favorite Batman. It's the guy who did the art for the Swamp Thing we were just looking at.
Oh, is it really?
Kelly Jones.
Yeah.
So Kelly Jones used to draw Batman with like floppy long ears that were just like bug eyes, like lingering in front of his face, and I love that.
Yeah. Here's Killer Croc.
Oh yeah, here's Killer. Yeah. So this is a weird way to do Killer Croc in my opinion.
Why is that?
Like, I get that it fits with kind of the weird, like the dark, grungy, aggressive style of the video game.
Yeah.
But do they explain why there's a giant alligator man? Because a lot of times in the comic books or in other incarnations, it's always he's like a guy who has a skin condition or something.
That makes his skin like an alligator.
Right.
He's obviously.
This is not a skin condition.
Right.
Like, this is...
because I think in the X-Files, there's an episode where there's like circus freaks, and there's a guy with that condition, and they call the alligator man.
Which is kind of an episode of the animated series when Killer Croc is running away, and he like ends up with all those circus freaks, like the boy with the seal hands, and that's a really sad episode.
They don't explain that. But because this is a video game, there are some elements that are kind of more realistic than the cartoons, but then there's also things like the Killer Croc thing that are more of a grotesque exaggeration of the character.
Well, that is so. As I was saying that I'm really interested in this video game.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I mentioned is because I think the video games have their own internal logic. So comic books have a very specific internal logic. If I see, if somebody decides that they hate society and they want to become a supervillain and they show up in a stupid costume, you get it.
Right.
You're like, okay, people who want to do bad things put on stupid costumes.
Yeah.
That internal logic does not exist in movies, which is why I think people are too hard on Christopher Nolan for trying to naturalize things more. But it is, like I think, like you point out, comic or video games, it's like a combination.
Right.
The internal logic is kind of meshing comic books and movies, which is cool. That's a cool thing. So I guess I do accept the fact that he's wearing underwear on the outside of his pants for no reason, while at the same time he's wearing like military, commissioned gloves that I assume could punch through a wall or something. Whereas in the comic books, like, even when Batman was wearing his Kevlar suit in the 90s, it didn't look like Kevlar. It was just black. And you just accept it. But in this, it has to look like it's screwed onto his body or whatever it is.
Bolted on,
yeah. Which does kind of bring me to another point. And that is, when I see the trailers for Batman vs. Superman, which we don't have to talk about in depth right now, but one of the things I think of is the aesthetic that what's-his-face, Zack Snyder is going for. is clearly, I mean, he's drawing from video games.
Right.
And people hate on him for that. They're like, oh, his movies look like video games. And I remember in this interview after Man of Steel, he said, or maybe it was before Man of Steel, he said, maybe I want it to look like a video game. Like, maybe that's my whole point, is that, like, other people have drawn from comic books in the past, and they've drawn from all these different sources, and I'm drawing from an aesthetic and an eternal logic of video games, and I don't know why that bothers people, which makes a little bit of sense to me. So I think that one of the reasons that makes sense is because Marvel is beating DC in probably every understandable, like, you know, marker. They're selling way more comic books than DC is. Their movies are, you know, performing way better than DC's movies. But when it comes to video games, DC is beating everyone else.
Yeah.
And so it actually makes sense for the fat cats with their cigars sitting at the boardroom meetings saying, well, why don't we make the movies more like the video games?
I think I'm sure that's exactly how it goes.
No one could see my cigar.
Well, this is something that I'm trying to explain to you as someone who hasn't played the video games.
Okay, now we're getting paternalistic, but go ahead.
Oh, come on. Is that this, like, since the Nolan trilogy ended, the Arkham games have been the definitive Batman property, more so than the comics are.
Way more so than the comics.
I feel like most people now who maybe aren't that interested in the Nolan movies, they probably get most of their Batman knowledge from the video games, which there's a lot in here, as you'll see. Like, there's a lot going on that draws from the comics, that expands on the comics.
Well, and that's why, to me, it makes sense for DC to not be ashamed that they're not selling as many comic books as Marvel, because in a lot of ways that doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Because if you're 15 years old, so when I was 15 years old, if I wanted to kind of dive into the dark, you know, recesses of my imagination, I would read comic books and then maybe play Tony Hawk video games.
Yeah.
But now if you're 15 years old, you play this video game. You don't go to a comic book store and buy comic books. And so it makes sense that for DC to want this character to have a longer trajectory, you know, being perfectly satisfied that millions and millions of teenagers are buying this game and playing it. Versus Marvel, who hasn't been able to figure out, to my knowledge, the whole video game thing.
No, but again, it's because they haven't really had to, because they're succeeding everywhere else.
Yeah.
Like, they do video game tie-ins with the movies, but they're never that good. You know, anytime, like, kind of as a rule, anytime there's a video game tie-in with a movie, it's going to be
stupid,
kind of bad, because it's rushed and it's really just another piece of marketing. Whereas that's not what this is. This was, you could tell that there's a lot of creative,
a lot of slow motion.
And
a lot of bats that fly up when he's beat somebody.
That just lets you know that they're down. You don't have to worry about them getting back up. Again, you were just talking about how video games have their own internal logic. There it is.
That's true.
Okay, next time on GameForBrains, more Arkham Asylum.
You just walked through that guy's head.
GameForBrains.